with its 2 heavy ships.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to charge 200 ducats.
200 ducats. And they're gonna say no.
No, they're gonna say yes. Because I just turned on yes man.
And we just sold our entire fleet to...
No, 2 ships.
We just sold 2 ships to Granada.
We just sold those 2 heavy ships, which is our newly built ones. And you can see them sailing off there. And then you can see Granada disbanding them because holy shit, I can't afford these ships.
Well, in all honesty, though, when it comes to Theodoro, I think we need to sell at least 2 heavy ships because then we can have battle fleet Gothic.
Really?
Yeah, sorry, I gotta have to squeeze in a 40k reference there.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I don't know.
Sorry.
We're gonna have to figure out a way to mount cathedrals on our ships.
Pretty much. I think that's a pretty legitimate way of doing it, really. So that is the current army mechanics. There's a lot more where that came from. It's not all done yet. There's a whole bunch of things that we haven't talked about yet, but that will do it for the army mechanics for the moment. We will discuss more in the near future. Let's go and take a look at the new trade goods.
Awesome.
So we got new trade goods in the game. We've expanded it by adding 3 more trade goods into EU4, and those are silk, dyes, and tropical wood.
Yes.
So let's see if we can find some.
Let's go ahead and switch to the trade goods.
Oh, there's some. There's one right there.
Oh, and I clicked.
No, that's not good.
New mouse.
And
oh, that's So this is very not finished.
Not finished.
Let's put it that way. But here you have the dyes.
Mm-hmm.
In Persia, and you have some silk here in Mazarendon, in Tabaristan, and tropical wood. I would assume that you can have some tropical wood in Southeast Asia.
Yeah, there should be some. But what was the main reason for adding new trade goods, mainly to Asia? Is it because to make it more interesting for people to actually go there? Because right now the scramble is mainly for the coast of West Africa as well as North America.
This is a bunch of reasons. First of all, we're just adding a lot more provinces, and it kind of gets old when you're putting the same wool and cloth and stuff everywhere. And we kind of want to differentiate the rest of the world more, because the rest of the world did not produce the exact same things as Europe. I mean, sure, you had spices and all that, but more is better, really.
Chad is, by the way, in the meantime claiming that we have the D, and they would like the D. Indeed. Let's not go too deeply into that. But so let's go and look at something else. Let's oppress some people.
Yeah, that's my favorite thing.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So let's go and take a look at our rebel system. We've completely overhauled our rebel system.
Yep.
So let's go and have a little chat about that. We won't be able to discuss everything regarding the rebels today, because there's a couple of things that I don't think are 100% finished yet. But let's take a look here at autonomy.
Autonomy. Right. So provinces now have something that's called local autonomy. What that is, it's effectively a modifier on how useful the province is to you, because it's sort of how centralized is this province, how complete is your control of this province. So if a province is 50% autonomous, that means you're only getting half of the tax, half of the trade power, half of the production, etc. out of the province, because the rest is being taken by greedy local magnates or Ron Paul.
And they should be repressed.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this can be a good or a bad thing. I mean, autonomy in itself is bad, but there is such a thing as people liking autonomy. And as such, you have some option how to deal with it. I have some autonomy here in Toulouse because, they're Aquitaines, they're not really real French.
They're not really French.
Yeah, so
exactly.
But I need to make them. I need to decide if do I want to make them more French by reducing their autonomy, or do I want to make these Aquitaines happy by increasing their autonomy? And if I increase it, it'll go up by 25, which means the province will be less useful to me, but it will also reduce unrest for 30 years by a significant amount.
And before you know it, they'll want a referendum.
Yeah,
and,
Yeah, exactly. So it's a bit of a you don't want them voting on things or thinking that they're people. So I think we're gonna go ahead and decrease the autonomy.
That sounds good. So 0% autonomy.
Yes, let's decrease all of the autonomy.
That sounds good.
And they're pissed. The unrest just went up to 8.8% because they just stole all of their autonomy.
Oh no, well, we didn't steal it, we just put it in the rightful hands.
Yeah.
That's how that works. So what does this actually mean here? Because, for instance, we now have a bunch of Lollard heretics floating about.
Yes, and I think that is Correct, that is the heretics. So, apparently, for some reason, they're pissed about the autonomy thing. And this has caused a bunch of heretics to appear. Presumably, they're, you know, stupid. I don't know. Something. So, now you have a Loller heretic rebel faction. And the way rebels work now is that previously you would have revolt risk in a province. And occasionally a province would have an uprising, and it'd be very annoying. And sometimes you'd get like 2 uprisings at the same time, and sometimes you'd be going to kill an army, and one day before arriving you get an uprising, and it would really suck.
Exactly, and then you need to like instigate hunter-killer protocols.
The point is, it wasn't very threatening, and it was very random, and it wasn't very fun.
No.
So, the new mechanic is a lot more fun, and also a lot more threatening. Because the way it works is that all the provinces that have the same type of rebels, in this case these 4, form a rebel faction, which you can see here in the rebel faction screen, and which you can also see here in the outliner. You can see that we have Loller heretics. And the 0% is their progress towards an uprising. When that hits 100, it means that those provinces are gonna revolt. And they're not gonna revolt in like 4 little stacks. They're gonna revolt in 1 or 2 big stacks, because they will consolidate their troops. The advancement towards 100% is semi-random. It's like every month they have a chance to advance 5%, and the chance depends on how many provinces are supporting them, how high the revolt risk is. So you know that it's coming, but you never know exactly when it's coming.
It's kind of like the siege timer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much. And of course you can just, you know, you can either like try to appease them, get their unrest down, you know, give them more autonomy. Can't do that because they just took their autonomy. But you can harsh treat them, which used to be in provinces and reduced revolt risk, and now it's they have no progress at the moment, so I can't harsh treat them. But the way it works is that it costs a bunch of mill points, sets their progress back by 10%, and you can keep doing it as long as you have the mill points, but it's gonna get very expensive for big rebel factions. But you know, if you're in the middle of a war and there's this big revolt coming and you just really need them to wait a little longer, then you can put in the mill points.
Are you gonna add a rebel map mode?
We do have an unrest map mode, which
is one of it's the one with the that one. There it is.
Yeah, and you know, it just shows how unresty the provinces are. It doesn't show like the factions and such. And that would be neat, but it's not currently in plans.
Cool. So moving on from that, we have obviously autonomy is going to have impact on taxation, manpower, and revolt risk.
Yeah.
There are 2 separate cases though. When it comes to hordes in the Celestial Empire, you can only give them so much autonomy.
Specifically, their autonomy can only get
50%, I believe.
That's so low. Hey, Persia. Yeah, for hordes, the autonomy can only get as low as 25%. For the Celestial Empire, it can only get as low as 50%. And before, because I know this is coming, anyone complains that China was actually super centralized and so on. Yes, they were. But the Ming Dynasty actually sort of ran a minimalistic Ron Paul style government that collected very little taxes.
I like how you're mentioning Ron Paul right now, whereas in the chat earlier on they were talking about Ron Paul as well. I think the irony is just not lost on me.
Look, someone on the internet is always discussing Ron Paul.
Yeah, exactly. This is like you can't go into a discussion about money without mentioning Ron Paul.
Yeah, so this is actually not a fairly decent representation of why Ming China was kind of weak. Because I know they were massive and they were rich, but they also got kind of their asses kicked by a bunch of hordes because they were bad at government.
Exactly. If you've ever played Victoria 2, however, then you would know that China is something you should really not poke.
And as part of this, we have also reduced the penalties for inward perfection and reduced the impact of the factions. So it isn't so much like switch faction to make core, switch faction to do diplomacy. It's more like bonus, sort of like what's your long-term focus? Is diplomatic or military or economic? So
let's take a look at the rebels spreading across sea zones. Specifically, at the start of the game, Gotland is generally... it's not right now, but Gotland at the start. Yeah, that's fine. But Gotland at the start of the game is taken over by Eric of Pomerania, who is a rebel leader who's taken over Gotland, or at least occupied Gotland. There's new functionality when it comes to rebels on islands, and they've taken over all the territory.
Yes.
What happens there?
Hold on. There we go. I just created Revolting Gotland
Hooray!
because I remembered the province idea offhand.
Of Gotland.
Yes. So I just spawned some rebels in Gotland. We are gonna have to like stop Denmark from killing them. So let's turn off the Danish AI.
Okay. Don't worry, it's just like real life. Anyway, carrying on.
Yes. So the way it works is that rebels on islands, I mean, it would be kind of silly when you get something like pretender rebels on an island. Because, I mean, they're looking to take over the government, but they can't get at the government.
Exactly.
So what we've added is that rebels have the ability to walk on water. But only for a certain distance. In this case, you have the...
Hey, the economy, you fools!
Oh, it's an omen. It's an omen.
okay.
It's an omen of bad things to come in this stream.
Yeah, definitely.
So that once they finish like taking the entire area that they have, they will be able to move to another area, which is not too far away. I mean, they can't like ship over the Atlantic, but they will be able to go from Gotland to... And what happens is that this should happen any moment. Oh crap, they're Gotland nationalists.
Oh, so they want...
They won't want to go anywhere else.
They just want to be in Gotland. That's the only place they ever want to be. Regardless, they move overseas zones.
Yeah, they move overseas zones, and you will get sort of a little progress bar ticking up there showing that they are moving to, in the case of these, they would move here to Blekinge and try to take over the rest of Denmark. If they were, you know, not so freaking Gotland.
Okay, cool. Let's move on to pushing CBs of vassals. Let's pause the game. We're gonna go
Slow it down a bit.
We're gonna go and restart this game later on anyway, just to show all the new province stuff.
Yeah,
but,
so we can do that down. Right, pushing the CBs of vassals.
Yes.
Let's see. Where do we have a vassal with a CB? I will do engage in a little dark magic here.
Tag.
But they need. Right.
But they're March.
Yeah, but their marches are vassals.
Okay.
So you know, and I will cancel this here. Unfortunately, I do not know the province ID of Celestia offhand, or this would go faster. My knowledge is restricted to things Sweden.
Sweden is in fact the strongest country, the weakest country in the game.
What's Stockholm's province ID?
Exactly. Fuck, I have no idea. So would it be 001
Yes.
by any chance?
1.
1. Of course it is. What else would it be, right?
Stockholm
Was
is not.
Brandenburg number 2 by any chance?
No.
No, it should be.
All of the, like, I mean, the map, they actually started with Sweden. Because, you know, where else do you start? But in the
clear.
center of the universe.
Yes, and then you move towards Prussia immediately afterwards. as you
Actually,
should.
that's sort of how it works. It goes, like, around here towards Prussia.
Ah, that's
So that's, like, 50 or something.
Will the AI ever revoke a march from the vassals?
Yes.
Okay.
Under rare circumstances. One thing about marches I should point out is that if you are a vassal, you can also ask your overlord to become a march.
Why would you do that?
Because then he can't annex you.
I see.
I mean, if you get vassalized and, you know, you make your overlord like you enough, and they're not really desiring your land, you're just like, hey, I'll be a march and I'll help you forever.
Oh, that sounds kind of like how my games used to go when I played as Brandenburg and take over Bohemia at the start of the game. Just forcing my throne. That's always a good time.
So we have now fabricated a claim on the Ottomans.
Okay, so okay. Declare war.
Right.
You can take Celestria.
And here we have the Moldavian claim on Celestia, which is now part of our casus belli. So we can fight to press Celestia's claim on the Ottomans. And right now the AI vassals are not fabricating claims, but they will. Marches will do it, and like more aggressive regular vassals will also do it. So, you know, if you have a march, he will do all the fabricating for you, and then you just push it.
Can you let's say you're playing a multiplayer game and you lost. Can you become a march to the bigger player?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So you will be their slaves to the rest of the time.
Yes, but there is a limit on marches, which is that they only get their bonuses as long as they have 60 or less base tax. And you can't make a march that has more than 60 base tax. So you can't have, like, entirety of France as a march. But if you're like a medium-sized player, or, you know, even if you're like a player and don't really care about the bonuses, but just want sort of a stable relationship, then yeah, you can do it. That's
cool.
I predict that will happen.
All right, that sounds good. Let's swiftly move on to our updated papal system. So in the last Death Diary, we talked about the new papacy. It is a bit broken, this interface.
Yeah, this scroll bar is A, not in the right place, and B, being weird.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway.
Beta will be beta.
Yeah.